There we go. So here we are, Arts in the Credit Virtual Gallery. Into the Light, Jane. Jane, where did you come up with the name? Why did you choose that, Into the Light?
Well, I mean, all my paintings, I usually end up painting pretty bright colored paintings. And, you know, it just felt after the last couple of years, 2023, I'm sort of like most people, I've been through a lot. And other than just COVID and all the stuff that goes on with that, there's been lots of other stuff happening. I know a lot of people are in the same situation. Life goes on, and it's made all the more harder by the fact that there's a pandemic going on as well. But I'm finally feeling like I can sort of see some light at the end of the tunnel.
Good, good. Okay, off we go.
It actually sort of, I hadn't stopped to think about it until I was just saying to my family tonight, you know, this is all the time I've been painting, this is the first solo exhibition of any kind I've had, so it's probably about time.
Yeah. Here we
so this is quite a small one. I did start out painting on canvases. I started small, and then my canvases got bigger and bigger until I did like got one that's about 3 feet by 5 feet.
Wow.
And then I went back down small again, and I started painting on birch panels, and I paint on the gallery panels, so they're thicker, so 1.5 inch deep ones, so you can sort of mount them on the wall just as is. And I paint, I mean, you obviously can't see in this gallery, but I paint around the sides of them as well. So this was one of my little ones. I did quite a few of just zooming right in on the orchid. So I think the center of the orchids are quite sensual looking, and I find them quite fascinating. And this one, you can just make out there's a bit of acrylic glass bead gel that I used on it, which is giving it that slight sparkle at the top there.
Oh, right. Yeah. In the whitish part.
Yeah, there's a sort of a white circular bit there. It's glass bead gel.
Huh. That's interesting. And did you have a particular orchid in mind when you chose colors, or was that just colors you want to use?
No, I paint from photos that I take. So whenever I see subjects that I think might be good, I'll take a photo and then I'll paint. I'm not that great at making it up. I mean, I suppose I could try, but I prefer to just paint what I see. And like this one, Canadian Beauty, those are actually the colours of the tulip. Every year I plant some more bulbs in the garden. So in the spring we have quite a good display of tulips. I've managed to find ways to beat the squirrels so they don't eat them. And so in the spring I'm out here with my camera just taking photo after photo of things that I can use. And on this one I've used sort of maps, local maps. You can see sort of Cambridge, Guelph, local Ontario map incorporated into it as well.
That's really interesting, because how did you manage that?
So the maps are actually the maps are transferred onto an acrylic sheet that I make out of acrylic, one of the mediums, one of the gels, and so then you apply the sheet onto the painting. So it's I say multimedia, but the only other thing other than the acrylic basically is the ink on the map.
Right. Okay. That's really interesting. And then you painted it after it was on the canvas?
So that one's it's painted. So that's on a wood panel again. So it's a nice
Oh
firm
yeah,
surface.
wood panel.
So I paint it first, and because the map, it's on a clear sheet of acrylic, then I put that over the top of the painting, so then you can see all the paint, you can see the colours and the shapes and everything come through the map from underneath. So the map is the last thing to go on.
Yeah, I would imagine.
I get my scalpel out and cut all around the edges. And
wow, great, I love it. It's really brilliant colors.
Good old cadmium. That was another tulip from my garden. I love the tulips that have got the different colours, as they often, when they're starting to unfold, they'll have like this one, it's got sort of purples and yellows and greens, and then by the time it actually opens up, it's nearly all red. But I love the colours that they have when they're first starting to come out, and all these beautiful, lovely folds in it.
So you never, when you were in university or whatever, you were not studying art?
No, I nearly thought about going in that direction, but I was always torn between the science and the art. And decided at the time to head off in the science direction. But I've always been, I come from a creative family, as my aunt will tell you. I've always been doing creative things of one kind or another, but it took me a bit longer to get to the painting. So this one was a photo I took. We're actually up in Kincardine, visiting my in-laws, and there was a car show there, and they're all the sort of lots of interesting 1970s muscle cars, and somebody had this really old rusty car up there, which I really loved. I love the look of it. And again with the maps.
Yeah, with maps.
We've just been joined by one of my nieces from Melbourne. I think she's in Melbourne at the moment.
Ah, wonderful.
So again, on wood panel, and I think these were some succulents. I took a photo. My mum had a rock garden, lots of succulents, and I love all the different colours. I mean, they're basically a soft green, but there's so many other colours in them. And again, I've used maps for the background on this one.
Oh, right.
They're a little bit more subtle, but they give it that little bit of interest and depth.
Right. Do you have a collection?
I do a bit, yes.
Yeah. It's effective for sure, and a little different.
I really enjoy using the different acrylic mediums. There's so many different pastes with flakes in them, and I mentioned at the beginning the glass bead gel and the molding pastes and all sorts of things. I really enjoy that aspect of the acrylics.
Well, you do a fabulous job blending, Jean.
Thank you.
When you're painting. It's not always easy with acrylics. So this one, so when I started painting, I was painting on canvases, and I really enjoyed the texture of the canvas, and I like the sort of the bounce that you get on really big canvases. They kind of bounce a little bit as you're painting. I used to really like that. But then on one like this, I started doing the wood panels, and this one, it's just a clear gesso over the wood. So the background color is actually the birch wood showing through. Oh, okay. So for the water, I used it a bit more like, well, if I say there's any watercolorists will string me up, but a bit more, I guess, like a watercolor technique with the background there, just really diluting the colors down and using softer colors and letting that wood show through. But that was water lilies I think if I remember rightly, my husband and I were in the canoe and he was busy trying to get the canoe in exactly the right position while I'm leaning over the gunnels with my camera. No, left, no, stop, back, right, whatever. So, yeah, that's the result.
So you do a lot of photography?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, this is really interesting.
So I did one along these lines with my nana, an old photo of my nana in her 1930s wedding dress.
Great.
My mum had seen that one, and last time I visited mum, we were looking through old photos, and I saw this one photo of her as a 4-year-old holding, I think it's a koala bear she's holding, and I just loved that photo. So I did tell her at the time that I was planning on using it in a painting. And it took me a long time after she died, to find the inspiration or the desire to paint again. And this was, I think, the first thing I painted. So that's my mum, and I copied her writing from I've got a postcard collection, so I've got lots of writing samples of family and friends. So that was some of mum's handwriting that I transposed onto the painting.
Oh, great.
The flowers are a New Zealand manuka flower, and then they're Pahutakawa leaves, which is, the Pahutakawa is like the New Zealand Christmas tree. At this time of year, it has fabulous red blooms, and then when the leaves fall, it always amazes me. Those are actually the colours of the leaves as they drop off. There's such a range of colour just from one tree. And again, on that wood panel, that's the background is the birch wood just showing through. I've left it just as is.
It's very pretty.
And I think that was the first one must be the next one I tried on the, round wood panel again. And that was a camellia, I think. I took a photo from mum's garden. But I really like the white flowers. When you just look at them, it's a white flower. But if you look closely, there's just all these other colours in there within the white. And the way those, I guess, with a lot of flowers like that, the way the petals all kind of fold, and you've got this kind of circular motion happening.
Oh, wow. Love that.
So passion flowers, passion fruit's one of my favourite fruit. So I always have positive associations with those flowers. That one, that is gold leaf. I think actually it's not real gold leaf, but
looks like it.
My budget didn't quite allow for that, but it's the same sort of effect. And then for all those fine little squiggly bits of the passion flower, I used obviously not the same one I used for making cakes, but I used a cake piping tip to pipe some acrylic. I used a bit of acrylic paste to thicken up my paint, and then just piped those squiggly lines on there. I spent ages trying to think how on earth I was going to get a whole lot of lines nice and fairly even thickness, and that was my solution. So that one's got a bit of texture as well.
Right. I've never heard of that before. That's interesting. Never would have thought of it either.
And yes, while I was on a roll, back to one of the succulents.
Yeah.
I have done quite a few paintings of succulents. I really am drawn to them. They're like flowers, even though they're not the actual flower. And again, gold leaf in the background.
Sherry wants to know how much time you spend on average on each piece.
I have no idea. It's quite a while. Usually I'll have several things on the go at once.
Right.
And if I'm building up layers, the acrylic, if it's dry, you can layer on it. But if it's dry, but it's only been dry for a few hours, if you go to paint like a wash or anything over it, it can lift the paint up again. But if you leave it overnight, then that doesn't happen. It dries hard enough. So I do find sometimes if I've got several things on the go, then you can do a bit of work on one and put that aside while it dries properly, and then work on the next one.
Yeah, yeah.
I think I timed one of my big paintings once, and it was, I don't know, it was in the sort of 10 hours for a big painting. I always like the idea of being able to do really loose and fast sort of abstract images with a palette knife. But whenever I've tried it, I most of the time end up doing these fine details. And even with my big paintings, I still end up using small brushes. So
yeah, I know the feeling. You just, I can't loosen up when I'm trying to do anything paint-wise. Either it is probably just because of my background with clothing and weaving too. It's detail. So I'm stuck. Yeah.
I always find when I'm painting, you just have to go where it leads you, and it's not finished until it's finished. And
right, that's true, eh? So do you pre-plan your images?
Yes.
On the board or in a sketchbook or?
Sometimes in a sketchbook, but most of the time I have an idea in my head, and then I'll sort of plan it out, sort of pencil onto the canvas or the board that I'm doing.
Right.
So this is a painting of a little island in Algonquin Park, and Catherine, my niece, has been there. This is an island that we paddled past. So there's a beaver that lives on that island, around the other side of the island, and we've had the privilege of seeing it when we've been past there on a couple of occasions. So that's why I've got this sort of description on the left there of all about the beaver, and then the map on the right hand side of that one is of that area in Algonquin Park.
Oh yeah.
So this one was kind of a salute to our camping trips up in Algonquin.
Mm-hmm. You're usually camping every year, aren't you? Under normal circumstances.
Yeah, we try to. We did have a friend once offer us their place down in Florida, and said, because they thought that we were too poor to afford to have a proper holiday, but actually we really enjoy going out into the middle of nowhere. So this one, again, my passion flowers, and I've used Japanese papers on this one. So there's sort of a tissue paper down on the left-hand side, and then that floral one up the top.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was just playing around to see what sort of effect I could get. I quite enjoyed working with those. My mum had actually, was at the time doing, I think when I was looking at that one, she was doing watercolors and was using bits of Japanese paper. Hers was usually fine tissue papers, but I think that sort of gave me the idea. I thought, I wonder how that's going to work with acrylics.
And where do you get your paper?
I think I might have just got those from Curry's, or you can get.
Oh, okay.
Just trying to think of places like Michael. Sometimes they have a little pack. I've got a couple of packs, so like quite small pieces of paper, but there's a selection of different Japanese papers, different colors and things.
So did you use the cake decorating tool for the icing thing for your swiggles in that one too?
I think so, yes.
Okay.
So now my brain's gone blank, the name of the flower.
Yeah, you didn't tell us that, so I don't know.
Frangipani. That's it. Yeah, they're frangipanis. So this one, it's not quite so easy to see on this, but actually the drops on that, I used a clear acrylic gel, and after I'd painted it, I've put drops of the clear gel on there. So it's actually 3D drops as well.
Oh, okay.
It's actually quite a small painting. It's only 6 by 6 inches at the moment. My screen is making it look like about 10 inches, but yeah, it's quite
Yeah,
small.
I think Colin would just want to get closer for
You
you.
can certainly see the drops, yes. And then the
Yeah.
background on that one, I was using copper color paint, just for
Oh,
something a little different.
well, right, yes. So Becky says Becky's kid Feather is there, and I was wondering what the timeline of your process is like. Example, how long it roughly takes for each sketch, underpainting, layers, etc.
Sketches, not very long.
Right.
Like I said, I usually have ideas in my head, and then I'll usually print out. I started trying to do a couple of paintings just having the image up on the photo up on my laptop, but I quite like to just print out the image that I'm going to be using, and then just go straight at it onto the canvas or the board. But they do take quite a lot of time, even for the small ones.
Yeah, I think small takes as long as large. And I mean, sometimes it's more difficult, I think, to do the smaller ones and get all the detail in.
It's certainly not a get-rich-quick plan.
No, not at all. How many layers? There's quite a few on here, really.
There is.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. I just keep layering it up until it looks right. Usually with one like that, I'd start off with doing a thick white under the petals, so that when I layer the other colors over it, you get the sort of light. Sometimes I'll do the background in one color, and then I'll decide that I don't actually like it, so I'll go over it again with something else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was that a photograph as well?
It was, yes. I think that was one that was sent to me. I know a couple of people in New Zealand who grow the frangipanis. They don't grow like in the garden. You've got to have them in a pot somewhere in a sheltered place. But yeah, it's whenever they've had flowers, it's been reasonably exciting. Auckland is subtropical, but frangipanis prefer full-on tropical life, from what I understand.
Oh, okay.
And now for something completely different. Yeah, so those that was one of those soda glasses. Those were, I think, belonged to one of my grandmothers. So they're thick, sort of vintage, old-fashioned kind of. And my kids really enjoyed this one because I think I made about 5 or 6 different parfaits with different layers and different, colors of jello and whatever in them. So I wanted to experiment and see what one was going to work. So that was the result.
Lovely. Fun. It's just fun image, and yeah, I remember those.
Yeah,
and a good job on the glass.
I would love to be able to just make these things up out of my head, but that did involve making a whole lot of parfait and lining them up on the table and taking a whole lot of photos.
Oh, did you? Oh, geez.
Yeah. So I've always been fascinated by the sort of religious iconography where they have the sort of golden doors and you open it up and there are the religious figures inside. So I decided to try that with my flowers. So this one is with the doors open. It's quite a big one, 12 by 20 inches. So I used my wood panels, and then I just made some doors and attached the doors.
Right.
And then painted the whole thing.
Yeah.
And then when the doors are closed, that's what it looks like. It's got a little latch there and everything. This one, I think I used my piping tool to do little squiggles and things with acrylic paint, and I made some embossed paper and put that on to give a bit of texture, and yeah, had a bit of
Wow.
fun. So you can have the
Mhm.
doors closed if you want to have a different image, or you can open it right up.
It's gorgeous. It took a lot of planning, I would expect.
Yes, but then also a lot of what I do is I just kind of go where it wants to take me. You know, I do a little bit, and think, no, it needs a bit of
Mhm.
something else, and it needs something here, and just kind of let it lead me.
You almost have to, I think, to make things work, because the original plan never seems to end up being exactly what you had in mind in the beginning. Seems
No,
to change.
frequently you end up somewhere that you didn't quite expect.
Yes. Yeah.
And the advantage with acrylic is you can just, I mean, mum always did watercolor, and
Mhm.
she was very good at it. But I always felt like you needed to be more in control of the situation than I think I could probably be. With the acrylics, you can, especially on wood panels, you can get out the sandpaper and sand it off, or you can paint over it. And I mean, there's, you can just sort of keep layering the paint up, changing your mind. It doesn't really matter.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep. Oh, gorgeous. Wow.
So this is a much smaller one. But again, with the orchid, and this one in the very center, I've used the glass bead gel again, and the drops
Oh,
on this
right.
one are quite sort of thick gel, so it's got a slightly 3D effect in real life as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I use some iridescent coloured paints as well on there. Yes, I have been known to fish out my phone and be taking photographs of the orchids in places like IKEA. It doesn't really matter to me where they are if I see something that inspires me. Yeah, so this is this one with the doors closed. I've got a little machine that embosses paper as well, so I was able to emboss some papers to put on that.
Oh, okay.
And another one, this was passion flower again with my piping tip to get the squiggly bits.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I get to use my power tools making the doors.
Oh, beautiful. Beautiful.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of two paintings in one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think this is my favorite one. I still have to figure out where I'm going to hang it in my house, but at the moment it's down in my gallery, but I think this is the one I want to put on the wall somewhere. It's the same flower as the smaller one earlier on, but this one I've got the leaves, and I love the leaves on those as well. They've got such defined sort of veins on them, really straight lines, and
Mm-hmm.
found that
They
quite
do.
interesting. And I think the background on that one, and in real life, it's actually, I mixed some copper coloured paint in with the sort of the purpley colour, so it's got a slight iridescence to it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep.
And this is that one closed. I think that's the last one.
Oh, so it is.
Back to
Okay.